going to be a midterm exam review session on Developmental Math I, MAT0018. This is Professor Forsyth. The way this is going to work, I'm just going to work through a midterm exam review, very similar to what you would see on your midterm exam review. And if you have any questions, you can type in the chat box. I'll get an alert letting me know that you have a question, and I can stop to answer them. That no calculators are allowed on your midterm exam, that you must take your midterm exam at the testing center. Okay, so number one, simplify. We have this expression here. So it's 2 plus 8 divided by 2 plus 9 times 3 squared. So to simplify this, you want to remember your order of operation, often referred to as PEMDAS, or please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So the P represents parentheses, E represents exponent, M is multiplication, D is division, A is addition, and then subtraction. Looking at this, we do not see any parentheses, so we go to the next one, which is exponents. And we do see exponent right here, 3 squared. So 3 squared is the same thing as 3 times 3, which equals 9. So we're going to have 2 plus 8 divided by 2 plus 9 times 9. So I just rewrote everything, and I just did the exponent. We don't have any more exponents, so now we have multiplication and division. So notice, multiplication and division are kind of grouped together. Addition and subtraction are grouped together. So between multiplication and division, you do what's first from left to right. Okay? First from left to right. So what that means is as we look from the left to the right, we have this division before this multiplication, so we're going to do this first. So 8 divided by 2 is 4, and let's rewrite everything else around it. And so we have multiplication here, 9 times 9. 9 times 9 is 81, so we're going to bring down everything else, 2 plus 4 plus 81. And then now we just have addition, so we're going to just add straight across. So we have 2 plus 4 is 6 plus 81, and 6 plus 81 is going to equal 87. So the final answer here will be 87. Number 2, simplify. So same thing, we are following our order of operations. So we're going to work in parentheses first. So we've got 2 sets of parentheses. So within this first set of parentheses, we have 3 times 6, which is 18 minus 6. And then 18 minus 6 is going to equal 12. So I have 5 times 12 plus 7. Now let's work on these parentheses. So 9 times 8 is 72. We have 72 minus 15. And now let's subtract that on the side here. So 72 minus 15. So 2 minus 5, we're going to have to borrow from the 7, make that a 6, and make this 2 a 12. So 12 minus 5 is 7, and then 6 minus 1 is 5. And then remember, you can always double check your subtraction like this with whole numbers by adding backwards. So 7 plus 5 is 12, carry the 1. 1 plus 5 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Okay, so we've got 57 in this parentheses. So now we're going to continue on. So we don't have any exponents, and next we have multiplication or division, whatever comes first from left to right. So we have multiplication here. 5 times 12. So we'll do that on the side. 12 times 5. So we have 5 times 2 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So we have 60. And then we're going to take care of 7 times 57. 157 times 7. So 7 times 7 is 49. We're going to write the 9 and carry the 4. 7 times 5 is 35. Plus 4 will be 39. So we're going to have 60 plus 399. And now we just have our addition to simplify. So we have 60 plus 399. So I'm going to write 399 plus 60 because I like to line it up that way. So 9 plus 0 is 9. 9 plus 6 is 15. 5, carry the 1. 1 plus 3 is 4. So the final answer will be 459. Okay, now we're going to simplify this expression. So we have 7 squared minus 6 squared divided by 7 minus 6 parentheses squared. Okay, so order of operations. It's a lot. This is one of those topics that's extremely important in math from here until all of math, really. So we're going to work in our parentheses first. So we have 7 minus 6. That's 1. So that's going to be 1 squared in the denominator. And we have 7 squared minus 6 squared. Okay, so next, let's go ahead and simplify that 1 squared. 1 squared is the same thing as 1 times 1. So the denominator will be just 1. So now 7 squared is 7 times 7, which is 49. So 7 squared equals 7 times 7, which is 49, minus 6 squared is 6 times 6, which is 36. Okay? So I see that someone signed in, which is awesome. If you guys could just, if you don't have a question, if you could mute your microphone, and that way I won't hear the background noise, awesome. But if you have a question, feel free to unmute and then just ask your question. That's totally okay to do. Okay, so now we have 49 minus 36 divided by 1. And so let's subtract 49 minus 36. 9 minus 6 is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1. So we have 13 over 1, which basically simplifies to just 13. Number 4, determine the prime factorization of 154. So prime factorization basically means that you are going to rewrite the number as a product of all prime numbers. So the way that I like to help to find those prime numbers is to do what's called a factor tree. So I'm going to start with 154 at the top of my quote-unquote tree. And I'm going to break it down into two numbers that multiply together equals 154. So it may be hard to think of something, but an easy way to start this process is to pay attention whether it's even or odd. If it's an even number, then you know that you can divide it by 2. So let's see 2 times what equals 154. So to figure that out, why don't we go here on the side and say 154 divided by 2. So to do this, we're going to divide 2 into 15, and 2 goes into 15 7 times. So then we'll multiply 7 times 14, and then subtract. That will give me 1, and then bring down the 4. So we're doing long division. 2 divided into 14 is 7, because 7 times 2 is 14, with a remainder of 0. So what this means is that 2 times 77 equals 154. And so we want to keep doing this until we have nothing but prime numbers. So 2 we cannot break down further because 2 would only be broken down to 2 times 1. So then 2 is a prime number. But 77 we can break down further. So 77, because it's a 77, we know that this will be 7 times 11. Okay? Now 7 can't be broken down further. 11 cannot be broken down further. So we have all prime numbers at the end, at the bottom of our factor tree. So that gives us what the prime factorization is. So 154 is basically 2 times 7 times 11. Okay? Any questions about this one? So saying 2 times 77 would not be a prime factorization because 77 is not a prime number. So all the numbers have to be prime in order for it to be a prime factorization. Okay, number 5. It says choose the graph which corresponds to the inequality because that's how it's asked in the actual review online. But I figured out, because it'll give you a bunch of them and you pick the one that matches, I'm just going to graph the one that matches. So we have a number line, and let's place -5 right here in the middle. Okay, so when you're graphing on a number line, so we have less than or greater than. For these inequality signs, we use an open dot, and then for less than or equal to and greater than or equal to, we use a closed dot. So for this one, this is x is less than -5. So we're going to go to -5 on the number line. We're going to use an open circle, open dot, and then all the values less than negative to the left of -5. So we're going to shade to the left all the way to the end of the number line, which represents going on, to what's considered negative infinity. It's going on. But the graph will look like what I have here. Circle at -5 because it's not equal to -5. And then we shade everything to the left. Number 6, enter less than, greater than, or equal in the space below. So we have -3 and -5. So let's think about a number line. So if I put a 0 here, 1, 2, +3 would be to the right, so -3 would be to the left. And so -5 would be further to the left. So numbers to the, so -5, because that's to the left of -3, -5 is going to be less than -3. And since -3 is to the right of -5, -3 is greater than -5. Number 7, simplify. So we have -5 plus 2. So we have integer rules we can use for this. So when you're adding integers, integers are whole numbers that are positive and negative. They have different signs. This is -5, that's +2. So we're going to subtract and take the sign of the larger number. Okay? So 5 and 2, which is bigger? 5. So we're going to take the sign of the larger number. So the answer is going to be negative. And then we find the difference between 5 and 2. So the difference between 5 and 2 is 3. So the answer is going to be -3. Okay? Now, let's look at it on a number line. We'll make this be -5 here. So if we start at -5, and then we add 2, go 2 to the right, that's going to put us at, this is -4, this is -3, -2, -1, 0. That also tells us that our answer would be -3. Okay? Okay, number 8, simplify -1 times -3. So when you are multiplying and dividing, when you're multiplying or dividing the same signs, your answer is going to be positive. Different signs, the answer is going to be negative. So here we are multiplying two negative numbers. They have the same signs. So your answer is going to be a positive answer. So 1 times 3 is 3, so the answer is going to be positive 3, because negative 1 times negative 3 will give you a positive 3. All right, so now let's simplify. 16 plus 24 divided by 4 minus 2 times 2. So let's remember our order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We do not have any parentheses that we need to simplify. We don't have any exponents. Let's look at multiplication or division. So we have multiplication and division, so we do whatever comes first from left to right. So we are going to tackle this 24 divided by 4. So 24 divided by 4 equals 6. It's very helpful to know your multiplication tables in this class. 16 plus 6 minus 2 times 2. So next we still have some multiplication. So now here, take the sign in front of that number. So this would be negative, actually I'm going to write that differently, negative 2 times 2. So negative 2 times 2, they're different signs, so it's going to be a negative 4. So we have 16 plus 6 minus 4. And now we have addition and subtraction, whichever comes first from left to right. So we have 16 plus 6. So 6 plus 6 is 12. 2 carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we have 22 minus 4. And then 22 minus 4 is going to give us 18. So the final answer here is 18. Number 10. So simplify negative times the absolute value of 55. So the absolute value of a number is basically the distance that number is from 0 on a number line. So since distance is always positive, the absolute value of something will always be positive. So the only thing in the absolute value is what I highlighted in yellow. Okay? So the absolute value of 55 is 55. Okay? So I don't need to have that absolute value sign around it because I took the absolute value of 55. But I still have this negative out here. So it's like negative times 55. And so negative times 55 is just going to be negative 55. And that's your answer. Let me compare that to something else. So let's say I have the absolute value of negative 55. Okay? So the absolute value of negative 55 is going to be positive 55. That negative sign is in that absolute value sign. Negative times the absolute value of 55 is a different problem. The absolute value of 55 is 55, but we still have that negative out here, and that's why it gives us negative 55. So notice the difference between these two examples here, okay? That's very important. Are there any questions about this problem? Number 11, so simplify. Remember our order of operations. So we're going to look at our parentheses, and this also means grouping symbols. So P also is just talking about grouping symbols. So sometimes you may have multiple sets of parentheses, so then you wouldn't have like double parentheses, you would then use what's called brackets. So in this case, this is referring to this grouping symbol here. So we're going to do what's in the bracket next. So 4 plus negative 3. So we have different signs, so we're going to subtract and take the sign of the larger number. So the difference between 4 and 3 is 1, and then 4 is the bigger number here, so we're going to say that's positive 1. So we have 9 plus 1 plus negative 12. Okay, so next we don't have any exponents, we don't have multiplication or division. All we have is addition. So we're going to add from left to right. So we have 9 plus 1, which is 10, plus negative 12. And then now we have different signs, 10 plus negative 12. So we have different signs. So we're going to take the sign of the larger number, which in this case is that negative 12. So it's going to be a negative. And the difference between 10 and 12 is 2. So the answer is going to be negative 2. You can also think about it like this. If you start with 10 and you add negative 12, so by adding a negative, you're basically subtracting 12. That's what you're technically doing. And so 10 minus 12 would take you past 0 into the negatives, so the answer would be negative 2. Okay, number 12. So another simplified. It's going to be a lot of these on your midterm. Again, this is very similar to your midterm exam. So take the time to practice that review multiple times so you can get most familiar with what to expect on your midterm. All right, so we're going to work in our grouping symbols or parentheses first. So we have negative 2 plus 8. So negative 2 plus 8. So I'm going to see if you guys are, how y'all are doing. So I'm going to see if anyone here can type in the chat what will be negative 2 plus 8. And then I'm going to do negative 6 plus 8. So if you can chat in the chat room, what's negative 2 plus 8? Negative 2 plus 8. We've got 6. Perfect. Very good. So that's going to be 6. 7 times 6 plus 3, negative 6 plus 8. What's negative 6 plus 8? 2. Very good. Awesome. Okay, so now we're going to keep going. So now we have multiplication that we need to simplify. 7 times 6. Remember I said knowing your multiplication facts is super helpful. It's 42. Plus 3 times 2 equals 6. And so now I'm ready to add 42 plus 6, which is going to equal 48. 48. Okay, very good. Thanks for contributing. That was helpful. Makes me know I'm not by myself out here. Okay, negative 3 to the third power. So remember, this exponents basically mean this. This is your base, and then this is your exponent or power. All right, so negative 3 to the third power basically means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. So negative 3 times negative 3, you're multiplying the same sign, so that's a positive 9 times negative 3. So now you're multiplying a positive and a negative, so you're going to have a negative 9 times 3, 27. So the answer is negative 27. Okay, 14. So now we're going to compare decimals. So 21.607 compared to 21.67, and we want to determine if less than, greater than, or equal to. So the best way to compare decimals is to, okay, let's look to the left of the decimal. So a whole number part, the 21.21 point. Since these are the same, we can kind of ignore it. Like, it's not going to affect or help us determine what's bigger or smaller or equal. Let's focus on the decimal part. So in order to properly compare decimals, they need to have the same place values shown. So this has 3 decimal places, 601. So 67 needs to have 3. So we're going to put a placeholder of, put a 0 there. So what we're basically really comparing, let's compare 607 to 670. And I want to use blue. We're comparing 607 to 670. And the reason why we have to put that 0 there is because that helps us to properly compare them. So now, 607 versus 670. .607 we know is less than 670. So that means that 21.607 is less than 21.670. Okay? So this is not 67, it's 670 in terms of comparing them with the other decimal. All right, 15, round 0.228 to the nearest tenth. So the 10th place is the first place after the decimal. So in order to round, we're going to round this number that I have over the red mark. We look to the right of it. So if the number that I circled in green is 0 to 4, don't round. If the number is 5 through 9, you're going to round up. So in this case, the number in the green is between 0 and 4. So we're going to round, this is an approximate symbol, 0.2. We're not going to round this up. We're going to keep it at 0.2. So we're rounding what I have in the red. We look to the number to the right. It's 2. So it's between 0 and 4. So we're not going to round the number in the red. It's going to stay at 2. And that is your final answer. If the number I circled in green was, say, a 6, this would round to 0.3. All right, 16. So simplify 3.556 minus 8.2. So something that's different about subtracting integers with decimals. So pay attention to the sign. So subtracting, let's change this to adding the opposite. So that would be 3.556 plus negative 8.2. Okay, so we have different signs. So we're going to take the difference between the two numbers and take the sign of the larger number. So because the larger number, 8.2, is negative, your answer is going to be negative. So now, if you're subtracting decimals, you have to put the larger number on top. So we're going to do our work over here on the side and put the 8.2 at the top minus 3.556 on the bottom. Now, keep in mind that when you're subtracting or adding decimals, you have to line up the decimal points. That's why I did that there. And then we're going to put some 0 placeholders here so we can do our subtraction steps. Okay, so 0 minus 6, we're going to have to borrow to make that a 10, but since this is a 0, I'm going to mark that as a 9 and borrow from this 2 and make it a 1. So now 10 minus 6 is 4, 9 minus 5 is 4, 1 minus 5, I can't do that, so I'm going to borrow from the 8, make this 11. 11 minus 5 is 6. You just drop the decimal, and 7 minus 3 is 4. So the difference between 8.2 and 3.556 is 4.644, but the answer to our problem is going to be negative 4.644 because it was actually 3.556 plus negative 8.2, which is the same thing as 3.556 minus 8.2. So the final answer is
negative 4.644.
All right, so next, simplify negative 2.8 divided by negative 0.8. So let's go ahead and take care of the signs here. So a negative divided by a negative, the same signs, the answer is going to be a positive answer. So let's just ignore the negatives and just take care of the division here. So 2.8 divided by 0.8. So if we need to move this decimal one place on the outside, so we're going to move it once in here, and then the decimal is going to go right there. So 8 goes into 28 how many times? So 8 times 2 is 16, 8 times 3 is 24, 8 times 4 will give us 32, so 8 goes into 28 3 times. Then we're going to multiply. 3 times 8 is 24. And then we're going to subtract. 28 minus 24 is 4. And then we're going to bring down a 0. And then we're going to go again. 40 divided by 8. 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. With subtract with no remainder, so the answer is going to be positive 3.5. 18. Simplify. 7.5 plus 8.6 times 15.6 minus 12.9. So we're going to follow our same order of operations. So we don't have any parentheses. We don't have exponents. We do have multiplication to take care of. So we're going to do the 8.6 times 15.6. So now when you multiply decimals, you can actually, you want to line them up like so. It doesn't matter. I like to put the longer number, the larger number on top. I like to do like that. Okay, so we can ignore the decimals at first as we go through the multiplication steps. So 6 times 8 is 36. Carry the 3. 6 times 5 is 30 plus 3 is 33. 6 times 1 is 6 plus the 3 is 9. Okay, now to do 8 times 6, 8 times 5, 8 times 1, we have to put that 0 placeholder. And now 8 times 6 is 48. Carry the 4. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 4 is 44. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So now we're going to add. 6 plus 0 is 6. 3 plus 8 is 11. Carry the 1. 1 plus 9 is 10. Plus 4 is 14. Carry the 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then bring down the 1. Now we got to take care of those decimals. So how many places do we have? 1, 2. So we need to move this 2 places. So 8.6 times 15.6 is 134.16. Okay, so let's write everything else around it. 7.5 plus 134.16 minus 12.9. So now we just have addition and subtraction, so we're going to do what's first from left to right. So we've got 7.5 plus 134.16. So I'm going to write the 134.16 plus 7.5. Remember, line up the decimals when you're adding or subtracting. So I've got 6 plus 0 is 6. 1 plus 5 is 6. Drop the decimal. 4 plus 7 is 11. Carry the 1. Plus 3 is 4. And bring down that 1. So I have 141.66 minus 12.9. And so now I want to do 141.66 minus 12.9. So 6 minus 0 is 6. 6 minus 9, I'm going to borrow from this 1. 16 minus 9 is 7. I need to borrow from this 4. 10 minus 2 is 8. Don't forget to drop that decimal. 3 minus 1 is 2. And then bring down that 1. So our final answer is going to be 128.76. My best advice for problems like this is to take your time. You have 2.5 hours for this midterm exam. Take your time, especially these problems. Go back and just kind of look at all of your steps and make sure you don't miss any slight, error that could throw the whole thing off, because these can get lengthy and there are a lot of steps involved. Simplify. So following our order of operations, we are going to start with our grouping symbols. So we have negative 6.9 plus 11.6. Okay? So we have different signs. So we subtract, take the sign of the larger number. This is going to give us a positive result. So we're going to take the difference between 11.6 and 6.9. So I'm going to write it like this, all right? So I need to borrow. 16 minus 9 is 7. I need to borrow one more time. 10 minus 6 is 4, okay? So it's going to be a positive 4.7. Okay, let's look at this next one. Negative 16.8 minus 14.1. So let's change that to adding the opposite. Well, no, just keep it. So we have the same signs. So we're going to add and keep the sign. That's going to be a negative answer. So let's add up 16.8 to 14.1. So 8 plus 1 is 9. Drop the decimal. 6 plus 4 is 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. This is going to be a negative 30.9. And the reason why it's negative is because we have the same signs. So we add and keep the sign. So now we're basically multiplying now. 4.7 times negative 30.9. So because we are multiplying a positive and a negative, we're going to end up with a negative product. So we've already taken care of the sign. Now let's take care of the multiplication. So we're going to have 30.9 times 4.7. So 9 times 7 is 63. Carry the 6. 7 times 0 is 0 plus 6 is 6. 7 times 3 is 21. Now we're going to put that 0 placeholder. And 4 times 9 is 36. Carry the 3. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 3 is 3. And then 4 times 3 is 12. So now we're going to add. 3 plus 0 is 3. 6 plus 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 plus 3 is 5. 2 plus 2 is 4. And then bring down the 1. But now we need to pay attention to the decimal places. So we have 1, 2 places. So we're going to have to move the decimal twice here. So the answer is actually 145.23. But the answer to our problem is negative, so the final answer, where'd it go, is going to be negative 145.23. This is going to be our final answer here. Number 20, 96% is equivalent to what simplified fraction? So 96%, so percent is basically the same thing as per 100. So 96% is equal to 96 over 100. And so basically from here we want to simplify 96 over 100. So we can do this by writing these. We can break both of these down into factors and then cancel out the common factors. So let's look at 100. So 100, we can break that down into 50 times 2. 50 can be broken down into 25 times 2. And 25 can be broken down into 5 times 5. So 100 is basically 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. That equals 100. Let's look at 96. So 96, let's see, I can break that down. I can divide it by 3. So 3 divided by 9 is 3. 3 divided by 6 is 2. So 3 times 32 equals 96. I can break down 32 into 4 and 8. 4 times 8 is 32. 4 can be broken down to 2 times 2. 8 would be 2 times 4, and then 4 is 2 times 2. So 96 can be written as 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3. That equals 96. Okay, so now let's cross out common factors. So these 2's cancel, these 2's cancel, nothing else cancels out. So at the top I have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 over 5 times 5. So 2 times 2 is 4 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24 over 5 times 5 is 25. And that would be your simplified fraction. Now there's a few ways you could have done this. You could have said, oh, okay, 96 over 100 is equal to 4 times 24 over 4 times 25, and then cancel out the 4's, and then you get 24 over 25. That also will get you there. But sometimes it's hard to figure out what those greatest common factors are, and so you can go about it by breaking it down completely into a prime factorization and then canceling out common factors from there. Okay? All right, 21. The decimal 0.92 is equivalent to what percent? So to go from a decimal to a percent, the easiest way to do that is to just move the decimal value 2 places to the right. So 1, 2, that would be 92. So it's 92%. The kind of way that I remember that, if you think about it, okay, D and P, decimal percent. D comes before P in the alphabet, right? So if you want to go from a decimal to a percent, you move 2 decimal places to the right to get a percent. If you want to go from percent to a decimal, you go 2 decimal places to the left. Another way you could go about that is by taking that 0.92 and multiplying it by 100. That will give you the equivalent percent. And so 0.92 times 100 equals 92. So that's why it would be 92%.
22. 208 is 65% of what number? So the way that I like to solve these types of problems is to set up a proportion. So I like to start by saying part over whole is equal to the percent over 100. Now, the 100 part stays 100 no matter what. So we're going to fill in numbers everywhere else in the proportion. So whenever it asks you of what number or of some number, that's your whole in your proportion. The part is going to be the number before is, and then the percent is whatever the percent number is mentioned or what you're searching for. So let's fill in our numbers. 208 over what number, we don't know, so we'll call that x, equals 65, because that's our percent, over 100. So to solve this, we're going to cross multiply. So we have 208 times 100 equals 65 times x. So that's going to give us 208, 20,800 equals 65x. And then when we solve for x, that's going to give us the answer to the problem. So to do that, we're going to divide by 65. So let's do that here. So 20,800 divided by 65. So 65 can divide into 208 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. 3 times 6 is 18, plus 1 is 19. So now we're going to subtract. 8 minus 5 is 3. And then we need to borrow to subtract here. 10 minus 9 is 1. Then bring down the 0. So now 65 divides into 130 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Okay, 0, and we have one more 0 to bring down, and so 65 goes into 0. 0 times 65 is 0, so it's a remainder of 0. So the answer is 320. So 208 is 65% of 320.
All right, fractions. So Molly completed 3/6 of her homework, and Max completed 7/12 of his homework. Who completed the most homework? All right, so we're comparing 3/6 and 7/12. It's best to get a common denominator, make equivalent fractions using the same denominator. So we can change 3 over 6 to be a number over 12, and then we can compare it accurately. So to go from 6 to 12, we multiply by 2. So we multiply the top by 2 as well. So we end up with 6. So we're actually comparing 6 over 12 compared to 7 over 12. So 6 over 12 is less than 7 over 12. So therefore, Molly's homework is less than Max's homework. So you want to create equivalent fraction to get a common denominator, and that would be the bottom number. All right, 24, simplify. 5 over 6 minus 4 over 7. Okay, so in order to subtract or add fractions, you must have a common denominator. One of the easiest ways to do that is to multiply the denominators that you have, and you will get a common one. And then it may not be the least common one, but then you can simplify it later. So let's multiply this by 6 and this first one by 7. That's going to create 7 times 6 is 42 in both denominators. And then now 7 times 5 is 35. 4 times 6 is 24. And so once you get those common denominators, you keep that denominator and then just combine the top. 35 minus 24. And so we can do that on the side. 5 minus 4 is 1. 3 minus 2 is 1. So your answer will be 11 over 42. And then you want to make sure that you don't have any common factors you can factor out. But you don't here. 11 is a prime number, and 11 is not a factor of 42. So your final answer is 11 over 42. All right, 25. So now we're going to simplify. Negative 1/6 plus negative 2 over 5. So same idea with adding, subtracting integers. So they're the same signs. Negative plus a negative is going to give you a negative sum. Same signs, so we keep the signs and add. So now we're going to just add 1 over 6 plus 2 over 5. And so we want to get the common denominators. So let's multiply the first denominator by 5 and the second denominator by 6. But we have to do it to the top as well so we can get an equivalent fraction. So we're going to have 30 as our common denominator. And then 5 times 1 is 5. 2 times 6 is 12. And then when you do all that work to get that common denominator, just combine the top. 5 plus 12 is 17 over 30. And then you check to make sure that you don't have any factors you can factor out. And you don't. 17 is actually prime, and 17 is not a factor of 30. So the final, what did I forget? I forgot something. This should be a negative answer. This is going to be negative. Got too excited. It's going to be negative 17 over 30. So don't forget that. Negative 17 over 30. Okay, 26. Simplify negative 8 divided by 5 divided by 12 over 13. So remember your division, multiplication, integer rules. Dividing different signs is going to give you a negative answer. So let's ignore the signs because we took care of that already. So now when you divide a fraction, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal, or you can do what I call keep, change, flip. And what that means is we're going to keep that first fraction the same. I'm ignoring the signs because I've already taken care of that in the red. 8 over 5. Change division into multiplication, and then flip the second fraction. 13 over 12. And now from there, when you multiply fractions, you can multiply straight across. I like to find common factors first to factor out before I multiply across. Because if you multiply across so early, you're going to end up with bigger numbers to deal with. So what I like to do is I like to look at my numbers and say, okay, I can write 8 as 2 times 4. I can write this 12 as 3 times 4. And the reason why I'm doing that is because now I can cancel out the 4. So what I really just have is 2 times 13 in the numerator, and then 5 times 3 in the denominator. And so 2 times 13 is 26. The denominator is 15. And remember, the answer is negative. So the final answer is going to be negative 26 over 15. Okay. The 27. So now we have multiple operations, so we're going to follow our order of operations. We don't have any grouping symbols or parentheses. We don't have exponents, but we do have multiplication or division. We have multiplication. Let's take care of that first. So 2 over 3 times 7 over 2. Well, here we can actually cancel out the 2, so I just have 7 over 3. So I'm left with 1/5 plus 7 over 3. And now I'm going to add the fractions. In order to add fractions, we must have a common denominator. So let's get a common denominator of 15. We can multiply the opposite denominators, but I have to multiply the top by the same thing to get equivalent fractions. So 3 times 1 is 3. 7 times 5, I want to use a different color. 7 times 5 is 35. 3 plus 35 is going to be at the top over 15. And so 3 plus 35 is 38 divided by 15. And then I don't have any common factors because 3 can't be divided into 38. 5 can't be divided into 38. So this is my final answer, 38 over 15. All right, 28. Simplify. 7 over 3 minus 1 over 3 squared. So I'm going to follow my order of operations. So I don't have parentheses. I have parentheses, but there's nothing to simplify in the parentheses. The purpose of these parentheses is just to group the base for the exponent. So I have an exponent to deal with. So 1/3 squared is basically 1 squared over 3 squared, or you can look at it as 1/3 times 1/3, which is going to be 1 times 1 over 3 times 3, which is 1 over 9. So when we do this exponent first, we have 1 over 9. I did not include that negative in there because that was outside of the parentheses. So that's not a part of my base. So it's going to be 7 over 3 minus 1 over 9. And so now I want to subtract. I need to get a common denominator. And sometimes you can get lucky and you don't have to change both of them because I can actually make the first denominator be 9 by multiplying it by 3. And then that way I don't have to change both of them. But I have to multiply the top by 3 as well. So I'm going to end up with 21 over 9 minus 1 over 9. So then I'm going to say that's 21 minus 1 over 9, which is 20 over 9. And then I think about, is there a common factor between 20 and 9? So the only factors for 9 would be 1, 3, and 9. And 3 or 9 cannot be divided into 20. So this will be my final answer, 20 over 9. Okay, we're almost done. So now, again, order of operations. So work in the parentheses first. So we have 2 over 5 plus 2 over 3. We need to have common denominators. So let's get a common denominator of 5 times 3, which is 15. So I multiply the top by 3, the second one by 5. So I'm going to have 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times 5 is 10. So I'm going to have 6 plus 10, which is 16 over 15. So I have negative 2 over 9 minus 16 over 15. Okay, so now I have the same signs, negative 2 over 9, negative 16 over 15. So I'm going to add and keep the sign. So the answer is going to be negative whatever 2 over 9 plus 16 over 15 is. Okay? So we need to get common denominators. And that is going to be, let's see, let's think about the 15. So we have 15, 30, 45, 45 works. So because 9 times 5 is 45, and 15 times 3 is 45. Okay? So 2 times 5 is 10, 16 times 3, 6 times 3 is 18, carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4, 48. And so now it's going to be negative 10 plus 48 is 58 over 45. And that cannot be simplified further, so that's going to be our final answer. Okay, simplify. Negative 1/6 minus, parentheses, negative 3 over 4 plus 1 over 3. So let's work in the parentheses first. So I have different signs, negative and a positive. Okay? So let's first write them as equivalent fractions. Let's get equivalent fractions using 12. So 4 times 3 is 12. So I'm going to have negative 9 over 12 plus 4 over 12. So now I'm going to, they have different signs, so I'm going to take the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. So as you can see here, the larger is the first fraction, so it's going to be a negative, and then we're going to find the difference between 9 over 12 and 4 over 12, okay, which would be 5 over 12, all right? So don't forget this first part, so it's negative 1/6 minus negative 5 over 12. Now, minus a negative. You can think about this as minus a negative changes to plus plus, or negative times a negative is a positive. So this is actually going to be negative 1/6 plus 5 over 12. And now from here, let's get equivalent fractions. The nice thing here is that I only have to change 1 because I can go from 6 to 12 by multiplying by 2. So that would be negative 2 over 12 plus 5 over 12. So now again we have, why did I put a 16? 12, sorry about that. So now we have different signs, so we're going to take the difference and keep the sign of the larger number. So the 5 over 12 is bigger than the 2 over 12, so the answer is going to be a positive answer, and the difference between 5 and 2 is 3. It's going to be a positive 3 over 12. And you want to simplify, and you can simplify 3 over 12. They both can be divided by 3. So your final answer will be 1 over 4. That would be your final answer. Make sure you kind of know what's going on when you look back. Okay. So that is a midterm exam review from beginning to end. I'm going to save this recording, upload it to my YouTube. I'm going to post it in my class, and I will email the link to Professor Barnett for her to post in her online class. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your professor. Come down to the tutoring center, the depot here at the Osceola campus. We are here to help you. Your midterm review has unlimited attempts, so the more times that you work on it and practice, the better you will do at your actual midterm. And remember, you cannot use a calculator on this midterm exam. Just like for the final, you cannot use a calculator. So it is in your best interest to not use a calculator when you are practicing at home, because you will not be able to use a calculator when you take your exam. So if you have any questions, just shoot me an email or shoot Professor Barnett an email, And if I don't have any general questions, I'll check and see. I don't see any questions here. If there's no questions, then I will see you guys online. Thanks so much. Y'all have a great... Oh, you're welcome. No problem. My pleasure. I'm glad that you stuck through with me. So have a great rest of the day, and I will see you guys online. Bye-bye.